Let's talk about the future of gaming events in the UK. So I went to EGX Comic Con on this last weekend, and I just wanted to put a few thoughts on how it all went. The reason I'm concerned about the future of gaming events in general, the main reason I'm massively concerned isn't just the fact that we don't have any, it's the fact that the ones we do have are folding in on themselves. EGX, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically the Eurogamer used to run an expo event which promoted UK gaming. It's been running for many years. My first one I went to was back in 2014, so this will be the 10th year of events that I could have gone to. I think I've been to at least 6 of the last 10. We have a bit of a gap between for COVID and things like that. However, this event was a little bit different because they've now merged the events in together. EGX has been merged in together with Comic Con. EGX was actually purchased by Repop, who own Comic Con, from Eurogamer, and now rather than do 2 separate events, they decided to put EGX into the event itself of Comic Con. Not such a bad idea. Thought, okay, let's give it a go and give them a chance and see how we go. Unfortunately, this event didn't go very well, I think, for EGX goers. As someone who's gone to EGX every year for so many years, I found that it was lacking, is the best word I can put in there. EGX in the last few years hasn't been great, and post-COVID it has struggled to even get going again. The fact that since the collapse of E3, gaming producers and providers are doing their own little mini directs and digital events is possibly harming the industry even more. I think the fact that there isn't an event is going to actually give us a risk of not being able to play these games, not having the access to these games. The fact there's no real true demos anymore other than what you get on the likes of Steam. I just don't get how people are going to promote the games properly in the future without large events like EGX. I'm not going to say it's the be all and end all. It was coming towards a significant period where it's been lackluster. But this event was very much like it was shoved in a corner and it was an afterthought. Comic Con is very good, don't get me wrong. The size of it, and if you like that sort of thing in terms of dressing up as your favourite characters and going to a fun event to enjoy things like that, that's fine. There's no problem with it whatsoever. I'm all more power to you guys. But for me, I wanted to go and play some games, mainly, and there just wasn't any that I was really interested in. There was a lot of indie games available, and there was a little bit of the smaller indie games that would never really get the light of day in some bigger events. That is part of the good part of the EGX. There was a lot of that sort of thing, but other than that, there wasn't really anything else, if I'm honest. There's a couple of games that have already been released in terms of Star Wars Outlaws was available there. That had already been shown off to several people. It's already released many months ago. I think there's been a lot of issues like this previously where games that have already been released are being shown at the event. Dragon Ball was another example which was heavily promoted to the area, but Sparking Zero, the latest game, has been out for another month already before people are like coming to this event to come play it. It's a lot of the things with EGX previously was the fact that you get to play these games before they're released, and the fact they give them a go and maybe give some ideas to the devs and things, especially the indie devs, on how they could improve their game, and that really helps them out a little bit. But otherwise, EGX has just struggled, and I just don't know what the future really holds for gaming events in general in the whole UK. The other event that I would go to, called WASD, was more of another indie-based sort of event. This last year, it was quite heavily promoted via the likes of Devolver, who were promoting Cult of the Lamb as one of the major games that are available to play there. don't get me wrong, that game is amazing and everyone should play it. But then there wasn't so many setups for that, and there was kind of a small niche of indies rather than any of the bigger guys, which is good, is what there should be. But the looks of it, this event may have also might not be continuing any further, because their website has just been closed down and there's no signs of it being reopened. Our team's tried to get in contact with their social media channels and they don't seem to be opened up any further either. Hi, Future Chat, just jumping in here to say that WASD has now officially been cancelled. It was announced yesterday, 15th of November. This was originally recorded way before, so apologies if that gets confusing. Thank you. 3 biggest gaming events in the UK have now been cancelled and defunct. And I just don't get it. It's very so the real problem is the future of the gaming events in the UK, as an example, is struggling, and I just don't know what we could do to improve this, to make it better for people, to get more people going to events like this. It's, of course, global economy is always going to give us a bit of problems, but the whole collapse of the whole events industry since COVID has caused obviously huge problems. The fact that the big boys aren't supporting events now, in terms of Sony, PlayStation, Nintendo as such. No Nintendo stand was up at the show this year. They had a very small section for, well, I say small, it's a big section for Mario Wonder last year, but this year there was no presence on Nintendo whatsoever. We had a Namco section, which had a Dragon Ball section and some other like mini games, many sort of sections of games to be able to be played, but it was very like shoved in and just didn't look in place where it should be, kind of thing. It was very odd the way it was all set up. So my general thoughts on this is I just don't know what is going to happen, and I'm really concerned for the future of gaming in the UK. Without the niche little events that are going on in some of the locations across the United Kingdom, I just don't know what is going to happen in the future, and it's really concerning to me that we just don't know. And is EGX going to continue with Comic Con, or will it just eventually merge into Comic Con and it will just disappear off the face of the earth? I think that is going to be a problem. I think the fact that this event was a 3-day event rather than a 4-day event gave me real issues straight away, because Thursday is normally the best day for EGX anyway. It gave you enough time to go and actually play a load of games, and then you have the rest of the weekend to sort of just enjoy and network and socials and meet people and go and play some indie games and things like that. Whereas without that Thursday this year, it was a massive struggle to get around to everything, I think. I was only there for 1 day this year, but there was just far too much stuff there in terms of Comic Con and EGX to get through everything. But EGX itself was very tiny, but the rest of the show was pretty big. There's quite a lot of other stands and displays and lots of other things you could go to, lots of panels and things for the Comic Con side, but nothing so much for the EGX side. There were some interesting panels there, like the Donkey Kong event show on the live stage, but the sound quality for that was terrible, and it was like literally in the worst place for it, because it's like right near the foyer to come in and out, and everyone was coming in and out, and all you got was just the sound echo around it. It just didn't quite work, in my opinion, on that, and it's just frustrating when that happens, because it's like you could quite easily organise this a little bit better and just put it in a better position around the venue, but it just doesn't seem like it was like it was an afterthought and just shoved in wherever we could find it. It is frustrating, and I hope that they've learned some lessons from this event, and I hope it does go back to a 4-day event, because I think Comic Con's big enough now that a 4-day event would probably do wonders for them to promote it, I think. I think the problem again with EGX being shoved into Comic Con was the amount of people there as well. With EGX being an event that was normally 100,000 to 120,000 people over 4-day weekends, to now having to be shoved into Comic Con which was like a 200,000 plus people event, it did feel very cramped in some of the areas there, and it was a struggle to get around to some places, and people were nice enough and try not to bump into you, but it's some points there it's just impossible. It's just everyone's shoved into one little tiny area trying to find the right bit, and when they go into a certain event, for example, we went to a Futurama a talk in the auditorium, which wasn't very well labelled to where it was, which was the first issue with it. But then the second issue was like getting from one end of the halls to that area was getting through loads of people, and that caused loads of problems with it. And there was also the Futurama people themselves actually struggled to get from one end to the other, so there was delays in the show beginning, which caused the ending to be a bit lackluster because they couldn't have any chats with people or things like that. So unfortunately it was a little bit let down, but it was still good, but just not quite as good as it could have been. And I think there's a few that is basically my whole review of EGX Comic Con. It's like, it was great, but is the best way I can describe it. It's like, it was good, but it could be better. And I just hope they take away some things from this year, and maybe have a rethink of it, and maybe spread it out over a longer period. I don't know if that would work, but I think for me it just needs to be a bit more thought out in placement. EGX could have been spread out across a whole one floor if they wanted to, and have Comic Con in the other floor, but it just didn't quite work out that way. And I know it's getting harder for event organisers to find more content for people to enjoy, but you need to find the right areas for it, and I think this is where it's going to be continuing to struggle. So with the collapse of basically, I think 2.5 major events, it's going to be very difficult for the UK to recover in the gaming scene, I think, in the next few years. But it does also give you opportunity for people to sort of find their own ways into this industry. A little smaller gaming events happening around the country may be able to expand further into that space, knowing that there's not as many competitors. So there may be more ways to drag people into those events more locally. More local, like in halls and fate sort of things, may work a little bit better because they don't have to compete with the bigger boys as such. I don't know. Maybe that will help a little bit in a way, but that may give us some more interesting areas we could go further away than the country, rather than just going to London every single time as well. That does, as much as London is normally a hub area for this, Birmingham did work a lot better, to be fair, in terms of getting people to there, and from further up in the north of the country down to the south. And as a central point for me, I'm from Southampton, down the bottom of the country. It's quite easy for me to get to anywhere really in the south coast areas. But my friends in the north and Scotland, for example, they've got to travel a long way to come down towards an event in London, and it's not a cheap thing to do to travel these days. So maybe with a little bit of rethinking, things can work out a little bit better in the future. But let's just take a break. Let's just think about it, and hopefully they learn some things from this event and see what they can do better in the future. But I'm hoping for the best for it, and I hope it improves going forwards. But it's just frustrating is probably the best way to describe it. It's the final point. I do hope for more gaming events, so more people can go to and actually play some games rather than waiting for it to be on Game Pass and things like that. I honestly think Game Pass has ruined gaming for us in the last 5 years or so. It's given so much, like, well, why do I go buy this game? Why do I go play this game when I can just wait to see if it turns up on Game Pass, or see if it goes for free on the Epic Store, or if it comes up as a free game available on Amazon Prime? I think that is really actually giving a lot of problems to the industry at the moment, and trying to compete with other games. If I'm going to get a free game next week, why would I go buy a game? That is really causing huge problems. But I'm hoping we can improve from this, and we can only hope for the best with the next industry. So thank you everyone for listening to my sort of rant on EGX, and I hope you all enjoyed it somewhat. But I just want to say thanks very much for watching, listening, and just being here, and I'll catch you all very soon. Thank you very much. Bye bye.